Next on Currents News, in the wake of the missile strikes, there are now fears that Christian communities in the Middle East will suffer renewed persecution. Reaction tonight to Governor Cuomo's State of the State, including his policies on surrogacy. Plus, police searching tonight for these men suspected of scrolling hate messages in a Brooklyn neighborhood.
Soon it could be considered a sin to throw this recyclable bottle on the ground or in a trash can, among other things that harm the environment. I'm Emily Truby. That's ahead.
Good evening, I'm Lydia Serrani. Tonight, talk of peace is replacing the threat of war. President Trump telling the nation that the Iran crisis appears to be easing. The commander-in-chief went on TV this morning, hours after Tehran launched missile strikes against U.S. military bases in Iraq. Whitney Wild reports Trump started his speech with a declaration.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
Flanked by top military and cabinet officials, President Donald Trump indicated the U.S. will try to calm tensions with Iran while also announcing new actions against the nation.
The United States will immediately impose additional punishing economic sanctions on the Iranian regime. These powerful sanctions will remain until Iran changes its behavior.
President Trump said Iran's missile strike Wednesday took no American lives and caused only minimal damage.
Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world.
His remarks shifted themes several times. The president spoke of Iran's enormous potential, praised America's oil and gas production, and criticized the Obama administration for the Iranian nuclear agreement.
Iran's hostilities substantially increased after the foolish Iran nuclear deal was signed.
Amid uncertainty about an escalating conflict, the president addressed Americans and leaders around the world.
Finally, to the people and leaders of Iran, we want you to have a future. The United States is ready to embrace peace with all who seek it.
In Washington, Whitney Wild, Currents News.
After last night's missile strikes ended, Iran's top Ayatollah Khomeini appeared before a crowd of supporters. He told them that Iran was hitting back at the U.S. and they erupted in response. They chanted, "Death to America, death to Israel." Khomeini encouraged the outburst, saying if America took further military action against Iran, the U.S. would be harmed many times over. Tensions with Iran swelled after an American drone strike took out the regime's top general, Qasem Soleimani. Today, he was finally buried in a ceremony carried live on Iran's state TV.
People chanting the slogans of Allahu Akbar and
Khomeini's body was laid to rest in his hometown of Kerman, Iran. A deadly stampede at his funeral yesterday delayed the burial. President Trump will impose new sanctions on Iran in the wake of the retaliatory attack on Thursday night, but there will be no military action at this point. So what does this mean for the Middle East, and how will this be viewed globally? Well, here to talk about that is Dr. Robert Karl, professor of Islam and Historical Theology at the King's College in Manhattan. Welcome.
Thank you.
President Trump, in his address to the nation, said that Iran appears to be standing down, but that there will be new sanctions. He also mentioned that the United States is ready to accept peace. Now, what are your thoughts on what the president said this morning?
Well, I think that Trump stood down as well. I mean, neither Iran nor the United States wants war, and they've both found a face-saving way of avoiding war.
And you were mentioning before about the propaganda. What is being said on Iranian state TV?
Well, Iranian state television is reporting that 80 American soldiers were killed and 200 wounded. Of course, no soldiers were killed and none were wounded. And Iran was very clever in shooting the missiles at 2 a.m. and hitting parts of the camp where there are no people. So this is enabling them to get some satisfaction for their bloodlust.
And hopefully not ignite a war. Because
right.
As we know,
That's right.
The president had said if there was any American bloodshed,
That's right.
There will be war. Now, what do all of these developments mean for Christians living in the region, especially in Erbil, home to more than 300,000 Christians, and one of the U.S. bases attacked last night?
Yeah, well, I think that life for Christians in Iran and in Iraq will be more difficult because of the Soleimani assassination. We've created a martyr, and we've fired up the Shia and united them against America. And that, I think, is an unfortunate development.
How much support do you believe that the Iranian government has among the people, particularly the younger generation?
Very little. I mean, Iran, the mullahs in Iran are very unpopular, especially among the young. At least temporarily, Iran seems to be united in the wake of this, of these events. But I think it's short-lived.
If you could speak directly to President Trump, how would you advise him regarding Iran and the Islamic world in general? What kind of advice would you give him?
Well, I would remind him that there's lots of diversity within Islam, including within Shia Islam. And we should be in the business of cultivating people that we can work with.
Dr. Robert Karl, professor of Islam and Historical Theology at the King's College in Manhattan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And tonight, America's bishops are praying for an end to the confrontation with Iran. The head of the U.S. Bishops' Conference, Los Angeles Archbishop Jose Gomez, is saying, "We must pray urgently that our world's leaders will pursue dialogue and seek peace. Please join me in asking our Blessed Mother Mary, the Queen of Peace, to intercede." He also asked Christ to protect, especially our military women and men. Also tonight, there's a huge mystery on why a Boeing jetliner crashed right after takeoff from Tehran last night. Several fires burned at the scene of the disaster. The plane was carrying at least 176 people, and there were no survivors. The aircraft went down not long after the Iranian missile strikes on American military bases. And with Iranian forces now on high alert, investigators are looking into whether the Ukrainian plane was attacked by mistake. The Jeddah Boeing 737-800 has a good safety record. As soon as news of the crash reached the Vatican, Pope Francis sent condolences to those who lost loved ones in the disaster. Most of the passengers were from Iran and Canada. No Americans were reported on board. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo delivered his State of the State address this afternoon. There's a lot on his list. Many are issues important to Catholics, including the outbreak of anti-Semitism in the state. Currents News' Jessica Easthope is here now with more on what Cuomo had to say. Jessica?
Lydia, Governor Cuomo's first words were those of unity and standing with the Jewish community. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Rabbi Chaim Rottenberg, who gave the blessing ahead of the speech. The rabbi's home in Muncie was invaded during the 7th night of Hanukkah by an anti-Semite.
Rabbi Rottenberg, I want you to know that I speak for all the people of the state of New York when I tell you that we stand in solidarity and love with you and your community. It is appalling and offensive what has happened.
Though unity was the backbone of Governor Cuomo's State of the State, he also spoke of the legislative measures already taken, praising the Reproductive Health Act. Another important topic to people of faith, especially Catholics, the governor wants to lift a ban on paid surrogacy.
Let's move forward and finally pass a law to legalize gestational surrogacy to allow same-sex couples and those struggling with infertility to conceive a child through assisted reproduction.
The New York State Catholic Conference responded with this statement, quote, "The push by Governor Cuomo and members of the state legislature to legalize commercial surrogacy is a dangerous policy that will lead to the exploitation of poor, vulnerable women and has few safeguards for children." Another issue on which church leaders in our diocese have taken a firm stance, legalizing the recreational use of marijuana.
This year, let's work with our neighbors, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, to coordinate a safe and fair system, and let's legalize adult use of marijuana.
Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio has maintained his position that marijuana is a gateway drug and has many more harmful side effects than it does health benefits.
We're giving in to people. We're not trying to help them recuperate themselves, rehabilitate themselves. This is the wrong approach.
At the end of his speech, Governor Cuomo returned to the theme of unity, proposing that the Latin phrase e pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, be added to the state seal.
Jessica, it seems like the theme of the speech was unity.
It was. Governor Cuomo spoke about this through much of his speech. He focused on a united New York that fights back against anti-Semitism, and at the end of his speech reminded the audience that, after all, many of our ancestors came to the United States in the first place in search of religious freedom.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Lydia.
Tonight, these two guys are being hunted by New York cops in yet another case of hate. The pair were caught on camera outside a deli in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, scrawling swastikas on the wall. Today, the NYPD Hate Crimes Task Force released a video from the December 22nd incident. On Sunday, Brooklyn Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio and Cardinal Timothy Dolan led a massive demonstration of solidarity with the Jewish community in the wake of several anti-Semitic attacks. There's a lot more news headed your way. The warning to Americans about the threat of a possible and disruptive cyber attack following the turmoil in Iran. And in Puerto Rico, so many are now living outdoors, afraid to go home because of the danger from relentless earthquakes. And plans to update the catechism to include a definition of sins against the environment and how it can be incorporated into your daily life. Do you have a story idea that you want to share, a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. That number right there on your screen. We'll be right back. More coverage now on the confrontation with Iran. One way for Tehran to cause trouble in America is through cyber attacks. Power grids, water supplies, and other key facilities could be at risk. Even assassinations might be plotted online. Brian Todd has more as security experts are issuing new warnings.
We've already seen chatter on the dark web and an increase in activity of malicious activity emanating from Iran.
Experts say America's power grids, fuel pipelines, water supplies, and telecom networks are enticing targets for Iranian hackers.
They could disrupt services, they could turn things off. If they wanted to, they could probably interfere with the gas pipeline.
Natural gas flows could be redirected. Explosions could occur, experts say. The treatment of sewage and water could be harmed, causing people to get sick. Communications could be hacked, slowing down first responders. The Department of Justice says Iranian hackers got into the computer system of a dam outside New York City in 2013. And cyber sleuths warned tonight of Iran's capability to attack American banks, businesses, transportation systems.
Bus and train services rely on an administrative layer where you process tickets and do routing and things of that nature. You're probably not going to stop the bus or the trains, but you may be able to stop them from being able to administer those services and run them efficiently or effectively.
In recent years, U.S. officials say Iranian hackers breached the networks of several American banks, attacked a Las Vegas casino, and they wiped the computer servers of Saudi Arabia's state-owned oil company, Aramco. Iranian hackers have made huge strides in recent years, analysts say, honing their so-called asymmetric capabilities against the U.S. We've learned of an ominous threat from a security company that tracks foreign adversaries online. One of its experts says Iran has developed a specific capability in cyber espionage to track important people for possible assassination.
They've got a surveillance capability where they've been slowly digging into telecommunications providers, airlines, travel providers, and they're using that to track very specific individuals.
Brian Todd is also reporting that Iranian hackers probably can't crack tough targets like the CIA or Google, but most companies are not as good at protecting themselves. Pope Francis is praying for Australia, where record wildfires are devastating the country. At this morning's audience with pilgrims at the Vatican, Francis spotted a group of Australians in the crowd.
Io vorrei chiedere a tutti di pregare il Signore perché aiuti il popolo in questo momento difficile con quel rogo tanto forte.
As the flames continue to rage, 24 people are being charged with deliberately setting some of the fires. At least 25 people and about 500 million animals have already died. About 2/3 of Puerto Rico is still without power tonight in the wake of powerful earthquakes this week. The worst hit yesterday, registering a magnitude of 6.4. The landmark Immaculate Conception Church collapsed and other churches were also damaged. Puerto Rico is now under a state of emergency. Thousands of people decided to stay outdoors overnight in yards, parking lots, and shelters. They were simply afraid to go into their homes for fears that they could crumble. Camilla Bernal is on the island with that part of the story.
It is a new day here in Guanica, Puerto Rico, but a lot of people were not even able to sleep. We're talking about people who had to be out in tents. If you take a look behind me, these are the more than 200 people who are at this shelter. The shelter was supposed to be inside of a coliseum, but yesterday the ground started shaking again. The lights went out and people started panicking. A lot of them are scared, and they're scared because they say that this has been harder for them than Hurricane Maria. Our teams here on the ground have been speaking to a number of people. There was one man who even told us that he had hope after Hurricane Maria, but that after this earthquake, he really didn't know how he was going to recover, how he was going to rebuild because of the uncertainty. They say that in a hurricane, they can prepare and they can really get a warning, but here this was 100% uncertain. The earthquakes have been felt over 100 times, smaller quakes, but a lot of them. And to help with that relief, to help with those efforts to help people, President Trump has signed an emergency declaration. That means that FEMA can begin to mobilize, but unfortunately, economic experts do estimate that the loss here is over $100 million, and that is on top of the economic loss that Puerto Ricans have already seen after Maria, so it is not going to be an easy recovery. But if I can say something, it is that Puerto Ricans are strong, they are united, and they are resilient. Reporting in Guanica, Puerto Rico, I'm Camila Bernal. Back to you.
Thank you, Camila. Now, protecting the environment is a major issue for Pope Francis. He's held a summit on the Amazon and written an encyclical devoted to caring for creation. Now, as Currents News' Emily Druby reports, Francis wants to change the catechism to include sins against the environment.
We must introduce, we are thinking about it, in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the sin against ecology, the ecological sin against the common home, because it is a duty.
An announcement that sent shockwaves through the Catholic world plans to update the catechism to include a definition of ecological sin.
We have a moral obligation to care for everything that God created out of love.
Franciscan brother Joseph Bach holds the environment close to his heart.
Anything that is going to not care for what God has made out of love is sin, plain and simple.
Another Franciscan, Father Brian Jordan, says the idea picked up steam during October's Amazon Synod when the fires were raging in the Amazon rainforest, the lungs of the earth.
The Synod of the Amazon has really put forefront the idea of the great threat towards the ecology. In other words, we're allowed to say our common home.
The threats may seem far away, but they can be combated here at home. There's plenty of things New Yorkers can do to help the environment, like plant a tree or even just recycling their bottles.
We can reduce the waste in the city, which would enhance the quality of life in New York.
That's not all New Yorkers can do. Thrift shopping, composting, using public transportation as often as possible, and volunteering for cleanup events. But the biggest thing they can do, talk about it.
You know, as they make decisions on recycling and make decisions on using disposable products, they're going to think a little, how is this going to affect somebody?
In Park Slope, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, we'll speak to Sister Ave from the Brooklyn Diocese about what inspired her to write a book to lift the spirits of those feeling lonely and sad. And hot off the press, the tablet launching something new that all Catholic students will want to hear. Now to stories of love. Sister Ave Clark from the Brooklyn Diocese has written a book of short stories to uplift those feeling lonely or sad. Currents News' Tim Harfman spoke with her to find out about her inspiration.
Inside the living room of her Bayside, Queens home, Sister Ave Clark is a nun with a notepad.
The mailman tells me his mom is struggling.
Jotting down her interactions with others.
The people that inspire me are the people who have struggles. Maybe I identify with them because we're all human.
This Dominican sister writes about spreading love despite struggles and published 3 books, 2 within the last 2 years. One of them titled Heart to Heart Parables, sowing seeds of peace, hope, faith, and love.
Each one of the parables, as ordinary as they are, had the extraordinary message to be peace.
Another book titled Arthur, Thank You for Being Jesus' Love, focuses on a man who suffered from schizophrenia, but that didn't stop Arthur from good deeds.
He might tell me something happened that made him sad, but he never complained. He said, I guess this will teach me something about life.
In her kitchen, Arthur's picture is taped to the refrigerator for inspiration. Sister Ave is already writing her next book and hopes to publish it by June.
The man with the camera. Great questions. Even the dog listened.
With sunshine by her side, Sister Ave wants her books to brighten the reader's day and pull their heartstrings.
There's going to be one heart we touch, and then they go on, and there's a ripple effect.
Spreading waves of love by putting pen to paper. In Bayside, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Sister Ave's books are available for everyone to read. They're being sold over the phone at 718-428-2471 and cost $5 each. You can also get them through Amazon. The tablet is rolling out a new feature that is highlighting the greatness of a Catholic education, a product I am of as well. Tablet Junior is a special pull-out section that will be in the paper once a month. And here to tell us more about it is Jorge Dominguez, editor-in-chief of the tablet. Welcome, Jorge.
Thank you, Lydia.
So tell me exactly, what is Tablet Junior?
Well, we are so excited. Tablet Junior is going to be a special section inside the paper, 4 pages monthly, that the students of our Catholic schools are going to write for the tablet. So it's going to be a paper done for kids, by kids.
Wow, amazing. So where did this idea come from, creating a special section for young people?
Well, you know, we have this wonderful coworker, Laura Hickey. She works for CDN, and for 22 years she was a Catholic school teacher. So she had that experience, and she had been reading the tablet since she was a kid. So one day she noticed that in the school they use sometimes articles from the tablet as, you know, material to discuss in class. And one day she came with the idea, working with us here, say why we don't do a special, you know, Tablet Junior for the kids. But on the other hand, you know that we have every year we have the Tablet Awards, where we invite people. This is for high schoolers, but we invite them to send the best articles that they have in the school newspaper, and they always send great articles. So when, you know, as soon as we heard the idea, we were on board. We said, yes, let's do it.
Absolutely. What better way to involve the children with their faith? Now, each month of the Tablet Junior, there'll be a particular theme. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, the first issue is coming on January 25th, and it's going to be service and leadership, which is, you know, 2 different things, but they should be the same thing, right? And then we're going to talk about ecology. We're going to talk about social responsibility. So it's a lot of interesting themes there.
I can't wait to read it myself. Jorge Dominguez, editor-in-chief of the tablet. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The tablet needs your support to ensure that Catholic journalism will thrive well into the future. You can do so by purchasing the paper at your parish or by subscribing to the tablet so it comes right to your mailbox. Now, you'll save up to 55% by having it delivered to your home versus paying for it at the church. Just go to the website, thetablet.org/home55, or call 877-883-8356. And that's Currents News. I'm Lydia Serrani. Thank you so much for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time. Good night.